Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to thank my patient crowd for taking this moment now to settle down into their seats, for making sure that their personal devices are turned off and made silent. Thank you. I'd also like to thank, too, if there are any interested photographers in the audience, please do make sure that your flash is disabled. If you do decide that you want to take pictures during the event, make sure that your flash is off. I ask you that out of respect for our candidates up here on the balcony here with me. I've got some instructions here, some information for you all to be aware of so that we know how to manage this event, how to properly participate in this forum. I'm going to read that for you here now. I want you to know that I am Dane Tippmann. I am serving as your volunteer moderator for this event here today. I'm going to do my best to speak nice and clearly so that everyone can hear me appropriately. We've already done some microphone tests, and I know that our volume is good, so I'm going to get right into it. I want to welcome all of you to the Curry County Voices Fall 2018 Candidate Forum here at the library in Gold Beach. Shortly, I'm going to be introducing our candidate guests, those who are here, and I will tell you about the format and the rules. I want you to know this forum is currently being broadcast. It's being cablecast on Curry County's channel 182. It's also being recorded so that a recording of this broadcast can be replayed and can be viewed months or even years from now. I also want you to know that this will be played live on that same channel right up until the election in November, but there will always be a digital version available somewhere online. If you're ever interested in Curry County Voices content, make sure you check out the Curry County Voices website once it's up and running and ready to go. Remember also, too, if you think your device is silent, but you're not sure, you haven't taken a look, please do take a second look and make sure that it is off. I want you to know that Curry County Voices programming on Channel 182 is made possible by grants from the Rotary Club of Gold Beach, Rotary District 5110, the Gold Beach Rotary Foundation Incorporated, and the Gold Beach Community Fund at the Oregon Community Foundation. Opinions expressed on Channel 182 are the sole responsibility of the person or entity expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Charter Communications, Curry County Voices, Curry County, or our sponsors. Before I introduce our candidate guests, it is very important that we understand the rules and the format so that this event moves along civilly and fairly for our candidates and for you as our audience members. As your moderator, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to keep the time for questions from the audience and to keep the time for answers and statements from our candidates. I ask that the candidates and audience members respect these rules and the forum and the directions that I will share with you. We will endeavor to let you know using signs, which will come from one of my gentleman assistants here. We have some signs letting you know when you get closer to the end so that you have the opportunity to wrap up your question or your statement. Those signs will also be there to help my candidates as well. If I need to ask you to find a closing point for your remarks, I will do so verbally if I need to and let you know, hey, let's start bringing ourselves to the end of our question. Candidates will have the opportunity to make opening statements of 3 minutes each. Earlier, our candidates drew lots randomly to determine who would be making their opening statements first. At the end, they'll have the opportunity to make closing statements. Those statements will be made in the reverse order of the opening statements. After the candidates have made their opening statements of 3 minutes, they'll have the opportunity, if they so choose, to make a 1-minute follow-up statement. Again, that's after everyone has made their opening statements. Immediately after the opening statements are made, we will begin taking questions from the audience. Many of my audience members have already taken tickets from our back corner there. I would like to remind you, too, that if you would like to take multiple tickets because you have multiple questions, please do so. I would encourage you to engage with this forum. That is its purpose. As you ask questions, I would also encourage you to be civil. As we are broadcasting and as this is a civil forum event, I'd like to ask that our language remain clean. Please avoid any vulgarity or swearing. Even if you feel particularly excited, please do keep your language clean. When you come up to the microphone, you'll be coming up to that microphone stand right there after I call your ticket number. Please do come close to the microphone. Make sure that our candidates can hear the question that you ask and that our recording also captures the question that you ask. I want you to be heard, and I also want our candidates to be able to hear you. When our candidates respond, I'll be moving this microphone back and forth between them. I also want you to know that our audience, you all might consider writing down your questions if you'd like to help you when you come up to ask it. I also want you to know if anyone in here wants to ask a question, but they don't want to ask it themselves, you can provide that question in writing to me, and I will endeavor to read it verbatim up here. I have several of those already with the ticket numbers written on. That is an option if you'd like to have your question asked by me on your behalf. I also want to know that candidates, I want you to know that candidates who have a question, who are asked a question, when you ask them a question, they have 2 minutes to respond. A candidate who has already spoken and wants to add more after, they will have the option to add more to their response after. They'll have about a minute to do so each time. Our candidates are going to be following my guidance when it comes to how long they'll have to speak each time. And I'll also repeat these rules as necessary, so don't feel obligated to take notes. I'll be here to make sure I guide things and move things along. I would like now to introduce our candidates who are in attendance. This is in no particular order. I would first like to introduce, and I'm sure they'll raise their hands for me. We have Jerry Lynn Thompson, candidate for Curry County Commissioner. We have Shannon Souza, candidate for Oregon Senate District Number 1. We also have Eldon Rollins, candidate for Oregon House of Representatives, District 1. I want my audience to know that Curry County Voices reached out to each of the 6 major candidates for office in our region in June of this year. The candidates that Voices reached out to include, in no particular order, Jerry Lynn Thompson and Chris Pash as candidates for Curry County Commissioner, Shannon Souza and Dallas Hurd as candidates for Oregon Senate District 1, and David Brock Smith and Eldon Rollins as candidates for the Oregon House of Representatives District 1. Now, I was informed that one person in particular, Chris Pash, declined to attend the forum early in this process of invitation. Chris Pash provided me with a statement regarding his attendance at this event. At this time, the only written statement that I have about attendance is from Chris Pash. The other candidates who were invited, which as you can see, Dallas Hurd and David Brock Smith, are not in attendance here today. Now, in accordance with Mr. Pash's request, I'm going to read the statement that he provided to me. I quote now, Mr. Tippmann, I thank you for your note, but unfortunately, I will not be at the candidate forum tomorrow, Saturday, at the Gold Beach Library. After much thought about it, I feel there are many issues that need to be looked into for the fairness of all the candidates. There were, quote, altered, unquote, flyers being distributed, as well as the public being misled on many threads in multiple websites. I think it isn't something I, nor any of the candidates, should participate in because of the damage created by a small group that looks to their agenda and not the common good of the people of Curry County. I've also learned that there are election laws that may have been violated as well. Again, I thank you for the invitation, but I must decline. I will, however, be at all 3 of the League of Women Voters forums. With the kindest regards, I remain Christopher Pash, candidate for Curry County Commissioner. End quote. Once again, I'd like to say that is the only written statement that I, the moderator, at this exact moment, have received from any of the candidates who are not at this moment in attendance. I do not have any written statements that were provided to me from David Brock Smith or Dallas Hurd or their representatives about their absence from this event here today. Ladies and gentlemen, here now is the order in which our candidates will be sharing their 3-minute opening statements. Beginning first will be Eldon Rollins. After Mr. Rollins will be Ms. Thompson. And then finally will be Shannon Souza for their opening statements. Once again, I'd like to remind those opening statements will be 3 minutes in length, and we will have some assistance with the time there. If your opening statement is shorter than 3 minutes, that's perfectly fine. Once you finish your opening statement, please hand the microphone to the next person making the statement. If we're ready to begin, I'm going to hand my microphone now down to my panel to my left, your right, and we will begin.
Hi, I'm Eldon Rollins. I'm running for state representative here in House District 1. I was told that the opening statement is to let people know what my qualifications are. Okay, so I'm a resident of House District 1, so that's the resident requirement, and I'm over 25. So there's that. I have a couple of college degrees and some coursework, extended coursework, and none of those have anything to do with politics, though. I've been a precinct committee person in Coos County for 12 years, 12 or 13 years, and I was their treasurer for a year and a half or so. 4th Congressional District delegate, and sorry about that. And I can usually string a few words together and form sentences, and sometimes those sentences are even complete sentences. And now those are my qualifications.
Hello, my name is Jerry Lynn Thompson. Thank you all for this opportunity to meet with you. I've lived in Curry County for most of my life. In fact, my family has lived on our land for many, many, many generations. It's possible I might be related to some of you out there. As I've said many times, Curry County is my home, and I love its rivers, our forests, and our people. During the years I've worked for my family at our old Harbor Post Office down in Harbor, south of Brookings. There was a lot of family members there. I met a lot of people. The elderly population there was like 75, that population means. But anyway, I listened to their concerns and their worries about day-to-day life in Curry County. In my years of working with the Tolowa-Dani Nation, again, I've listened to the issues and tried to help find solutions where I could. All of my volunteer opportunities, I've listened first and then set about helping find solutions. This is who I am. I listen. I listen a lot, and it's always the first step in solving problems. I've listened to many people about their issues since I've started this campaign, from Port Orford, Brookings Harbor, Agnes, Gold Beach, and points in between. One of the questions that always comes up is, how are you going to bring money to Curry County? One of the other ones, Port Orford needs water infrastructure repair. Harbor has water issues. The sheriff needs deputies and a new jail. We need affordable housing. Healthcare and mental health care are urgent needs in our county. Homelessness is on the rise. Our forest management policies are leading to the mega fires that are burning us out of our homes and destroying our natural resources. These are serious issues. There's not just one solution. It will take all of us working together to come up with plans that are not just rhetoric and posturing, but will help us move forward. In my work with the Tolowa-Dani Nation Tribal Council, I know firsthand that there's pots of money out there that are left on the table. Grant monies, partnerships, tax credit opportunities. These pots could go a long ways to different areas in our county, and I would like to bring those to our county. I also have personal relationships that I've developed over the years with our movers and shakers on the state and national levels who can point us in the right direction and help advocate for us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shannon Souza. I was raised in a small historic lighthouse community on Washington's Puget Sound called Browns Point. I'm an engineer. I'm a co-founder of a public school, a contractor, a volunteer teacher in math, science, and the arts, small business owner, co-founder of 2 nonprofits with a focus in integration of the arts and education, a single mother, and an aspiring state senator for District 1. I arrived in this district 23 years ago on an 18-month assignment for Weyerhaeuser Corporation's Office of the Environment to help convert a paper mill to 100% recycle and reduce its emissions and water use by over 50%. I have guided my professional, volunteer, and business development life for the last 23 years with a mission of supporting strategic growth, responsible development, and sustainable living. It is this same mission that I would like to take to Salem on your behalf. This mission in the last 23 years has resulted in my experience in industrial manufacturing, public water supply development and management, ecosystem restoration, energy, distributed energy generation and conservation, education, housing, and ecological systems management. I've been running my campaign with a vision of a thriving, resilient Oregon, and I have come to the conclusion that at the heart of this mission is a strengthened and supported working class, strengthened through meaningful public investments in childcare and education, with educational pathways into living wage jobs that are available now in our district and not being filled, and supported with access to health care for all, affordable housing, and fully functioning, robust infrastructure. The 2019 legislative session offers us the opportunity to update our educational, environmental, and economic systems to adapt to the rapidly changing climate, technology, and society that we are now facing. The combination of my skills and experiences in the region, coupled with my approach towards collaborative innovation, suit me well for the task of representing those needs, of providing an effective and refreshing voice for rural Oregonians in Salem. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. It also occurs to me, too, that I ought to mention applause, too. I would like to ask that my audience hold applause at least until the end of our forum, if there is something that you would like to applause for. By holding your applause, you're allowing our candidates to maximize the amount of time that they can answer your questions. I'd also like to say, too, that I'm glad everyone has their phones off. That's really fantastic. I want to offer my candidates the opportunity to add an additional 1-minute statement if they would like to do so. Please indicate to me by looking at me or raising your hand if you'd like to add an additional minute. All right. While I have my hat brought up to me from the back of the room, that hat which of course holds the tickets, I'd like my audience to know that we are now beginning the audience portion of this forum. Now, at this point, remember that you have 1 minute to ask your question. Please do indeed phrase it as a question. I'd also like that question to be portrayed in such a way that it is either for a particular candidate or for all the candidates. So they're here indeed to answer your questions, and each of them will have 2 minutes to provide a response. And then if any other candidate would like to answer a question that was not asked of them specifically, they may identify themselves by raising their hand to me and asking to do so, and they will be given that opportunity. And I'll take that hat now. It's okay if you walk in front of the camera. We'll survive. Thank you, sir. I'm now going to draw the first ticket out. Remember, I'm going to call off the last 3 digits of the number that is on your ticket. The first 3 digits, or the first ticket here, is 040. If 040 is in attendance with their question, please step up to the microphone there. I want you to know that microphone is live. It is ready to go at that exact moment. And if you need any assistance with moving the microphone in any way, let us know. But if you speak nice directly into it and close, I'm sure we'll hear you just fine.
Okay, my question is a general question for all. I would like your view of wildfire policy, logging policy for federal land, and what part should your position play in any, if any, during fires and in prevention? And in a specific question, the federal lands have never belonged to Oregon. What do you feel with the statement I keep hearing? Quote, we need to get back forest. Oh boy. We need to get back, forest land and BLM land back to Oregon. That's the specific question. Thank you.
To answer the question, I'm going to first hand the microphone to Shannon Souza, then to Ms. Thompson, then to Mr. Rollins, and periodically I will try and reverse that order so that for group questions, it's not always the same person answering first. I'll hand it now to Ms. Souza.
I've been enjoying getting to know my district in part by hosting conversations on the topic of forestry management and the relationship with wildfires around the district, one of which will be held tomorrow in Brookings. In terms of federal management and federal forests and what opportunities and roles we can play, thank you to Senator Merkley for effectively and accomplishing what the first step that needed to be accomplished, which is to decouple the federal spending for wildfire fightings and wildfire prevention for encouraging forest resiliency in terms of wildfire prevention. That is going to be released to us in 2020. That would be a travesty if we were to wait until 2020 to determine what we believe as the residents of this district to be the best science available that is calibrated with the boots on the ground local information of how the winds blow, how the soils need to be retained, and how we need to protect our clean water systems. If we can look forward to the knowledge that in 2020 we will have financial resources to invest in our federal land management toward wildfire resiliency and resistance, then it would behoove us at this point in time, as soon as possible, to find the means and the strategies to bring together the best science with the most knowledgeable locals who have been working in this area. The effective management of any of our natural resources is going to have to reflect the knowledge and the objectives, multiple objectives, both of removing some of the fuel sources, of protecting our soils and refueling those soils with the natural biomass that they need for our forests to grow, and of protecting our clean water.
Thank you. The federal forests belong to all of us. My proposal would be to have Curry County create our own forest plan to manage those lands. I think our local people know more about those lands than other people do. I would like to see some traditional forest management come in that's been acknowledged with the Karuk tribe for their excellence in forest management. And take this approach that we can create these buffers to protect us from the mega fires. Because if we don't get in there, we're going to have another mega fire. We're 10 months away from next year's fire season. So I would like to partnership with anybody we can to help get in there and manage the forest. I know that Merv George, the supervisor from the Rogue River National Forest, has indicated that this is his wish also. So if we can work together with the Forest Service, with the county, and come up with our own plan for all of us. Thank you.
I don't know a tremendous amount about this issue. Is that better? Okay. It was coming up a lot at the Coos County Commissioner meetings that I attend on a semi-regular basis, and especially the part about private ownership of federal and BLM forest lands. Personally, I'm not terribly in favor of giving away all of our forest lands that people are presently able to recreate in to private interests. I don't think that's a terribly good idea. I understand that the fire situation in the western United States is getting pretty scary. I don't know what to do about it myself.
And our next ticket is 026. Audience member with ticket 026 is the last three digits.
Thank you. This is a question specifically for the two state-level candidates. Do you support cap and invest? If so, how do you see it impacting our district?
And once again, I'm sorry, that was a question for which candidates, please?
The candidates for SD1 and HD1.
Got it. Did my candidates understand the question, or would they like a rephrase?
It's called cap and invest.
Okay,
Does this have anything to do what they were calling the carbon tax?
and I don't mind if my questioner, do you need to ask more questions of the person who asked the question? Or are you confident with your answer? Okay, I'll bring it down to you then.
On one level, it sounds like a really good idea, but there's a little bit too much of an element of creating another market to speculate in, enabling companies, large corporations to trade the ability to pollute more over here if they have something over here that isn't polluting and is recapturing carbon dioxide, just creates another market for manipulators to involve themselves in. I hope we can come up with a better way of dealing with the situation than that.
I do support a cap and invest market. A cap and invest market is a different market than a carbon tax. Carbon, of course, is not the only contributor to greenhouse gases, but it's kind of the canary that we refer to. A carbon tax program is one that puts a tax on your emissions but doesn't cap it. You can pay to play and continue to contribute to greenhouse gases. That is not what is being contemplated in the 2019 legislative session. What is being contemplated is entering into the cap and invest or cap and trade market that has been established and is now actively being participated in California, in some northeastern states, and significant portions of Canada very successfully. In those regions, the cap and invest market has resulted in continued increase in economic performance of the region with dramatic reductions in their greenhouse gas emissions. The impacts to rural Oregonians of contemplating this, where we're looking at capping and assigning some financial investment requiring that of those largest contributors. Half of our contributions are coming from transportation. 80% of Oregon's communities rely solely on trucking to transport our goods, and rural Oregonians are particularly susceptible to this. So it will have a tremendous impact on rural Oregonians, and we need to carefully contemplate how we will effectively reinvest in rural Oregon in ways that are both adaptive and mitigative to greenhouse gas emissions, such as carbon sequestration through our forestry management, renewable energy, and distributed management systems.
And of course, I'd also like to remind my candidates too that if, after every candidate has spoken, if you would like to answer the question, even if it wasn't asked of you, you may. I also want to remind my candidates that if they would like to make an additional statement, they may have time of 1 minute. Raising their hand in that way is the perfect way to do so. I'll bring the mic to you, sir.
If the new legislation under proposal helps to take care of the issue of market speculation, I'd be in favor of it.
Our next ticket is ticket 023. 023, if you're in the audience, please come up to the microphone. Looking for 023. Not present, I will move on to the next ticket. Ticket 030 is the next ticket that's come up. 030. Again, check those last three numbers on your ticket if it's yours.
That's me.
Excellent.
This question is for everybody. What do you see as some of the ways to drive our economy so that it's a healthier economy for our county?
And I would like to start with Jerry Lynn Thompson first, then Mr. Rollins, then Ms. Souza.
Thank you. I think one of the ways to drive our economy is to address our housing needs, to address our healthcare needs. There's a lot of things we need to do to make it so that people want to move here that will raise our economy.
I'm very much in favor of improving the housing situation for people, and healthcare as well. I don't know what the market drivers would be for this area that we don't have already. There are some favorable recent technologies in forest products industry. Now they're making practically skyscrapers out of wood. That could be very helpful. I don't think a liquid natural gas facility on Coos Bay would be very helpful. And beyond that, I haven't given it a tremendous amount of thought.
Of the 5 counties that are part of the Senate District 1, the 3 largest contributors are Curry County, Douglas County, and Coos. The regional economist for those, fortunately, has her office about 3 blocks from mine, and I devour her economic reports and fact check with her. And what we are finding is that in this region, contrary to popular belief, we don't actually have a jobs problem. We have a workforce problem. We have existing and emerging economies in healthcare, in the building trades, to some extent, even still in manufacturing, that are not being met. Meanwhile, we have 20 to 50% poverty rates. So, the first thing that I would like to do is to grow our own population of happy, healthy, capable employees to show up that are ready to do the work that needs to be done. That will lower our overall cost of living. It will increase our access to health care. It will increase our access to the carpenters and the electricians that we so desperately need to help us with our housing crisis.
Would any of my candidates like to make an additional comment? My next ticket is 032. 032 is the next ticket that was called. Seeing no 032 in the audience, I'll move on to the next ticket. Pardon me. I make notes when I call tickets like these, so you see me pause for a moment. I want to make sure I keep track of numbers that were called. Next number is ticket 038. 038 is a written submission. I'm going to read that written submission now to the best of my ability. I'm going to read this verbatim as well. I will not make any modifications to the written question. This question is for the entire panel. I'm going to do this in the order of Ms. Souza, then Mr. Rollins, then Ms. Thompson. Here's the question for the entire panel. Business hours are restricted for liquor stores. Would you consider similar restrictions on retail marijuana stores? That is the question. Do we need to rephrase? Repeating the question, this is a question for the entire panel. Business hours are restricted for liquor stores. Would you consider similar restrictions on retail marijuana stores? Do you have a question? Okay. I'm going to move now to Ms. Souza first, then we'll move to Ms. Thompson. Here you are.
Sure, I would consider restrictions to operations. I'd be interested in talking to our public safety officers and those that are bringing forth any type of a plan and understand what the concerns are and what exactly is at play. And then I would like to consult with the cannabis industry and hear what their thoughts are on that before making a decision.
Okay. Sure. They should have restrictions on their business hours, and if it's at all possible, could I interject another topic that's related to the marijuana industry? Okay. There's a problem, or there's been a problem where synthetic marijuana products are sold in those stores or in some of those stores, and a lot of them come from China, and they have some very unusual side effects on people who buy them. And I think that if they can't ascertain what those side effects are, how they're going to affect people, they should just not be allowed to sell them until they do.
I would like to listen to see what both sides have to say and then make an informed decision from that. It may be possible that we do need restrictions on them, but I would like to hear both sides of the story.
As Mr. Rollins made a comment on the topic of synthetic marijuana, would any of my candidates like to speak for a minute on that topic or make an additional comment? Okay, thank you. And by the way, too, I want my audience to know if anyone feels inspired while they're listening to these and they want to get an additional ticket, they have a new question they'd like to ask, our tickets are still available back there. Please take a ticket, hand that ticket to one of my volunteers. They'll bring additional ones to me if the time should happen that I should run out of tickets in my hat up here. Moving on to the next ticket. The ticket number is 036. Is ticket 036 in the audience? Please look at the last three digits, 036. Seeing no one in the audience, we'll move to the next ticket. Next ticket is 031. 031 is the next ticket. If you have 031 on your ticket, please identify yourself. No. Moving on to the next ticket. Next ticket is 017. Ticket 017 is called. If 017 is yours, thank you.
This is for Jerry Lynn as county commissioner candidate. Presently, the travel policy is not being followed by all the commissioners, and I wondered if your opinion is that is something that should be taken care of. And also, the second part of that question is, if you become commissioner, would you work to get travel within Curry County increased? Because right now it is only on an emergency basis if requested ahead of time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think all policies should be followed. I do in my current job we make policies and we follow them. The travel policy, I understand in the policy it allows for emergency travel. If you need to go somewhere, you can request that and be approved. That would be, I like that idea. I don't like to take it upon myself to just go to whatever, because I feel I'm serving all of the people of the Curry County, and I need to respect that.
Do any of my other candidates have a comment that they'd like to make? Moving on to the next ticket. The next ticket is 033. If 033 is the last three digits of your ticket, please identify yourself. Next ticket is 035. Is 035 present in the audience? Excellent.
I had kind of a personal question for each one of you. Back when the Constitution was written, there was this concept that there would be kind of a state representative and it became the Senate. There would be a people's representative that would be basically the House of Representatives. But somewhere in between, and if I look at it now, we have a Republican Party, we have a Democratic Party, and we have this whole group of private interests. What can you tell me about yourself that's going to lead me to believe that you'll represent us and not a Democratic Party or a Republican Party? It's not that you can't have those interests, but why should I believe that you're going to listen to us, hear what we have to say, and find ways to solve our problems?
We'll begin with Mr. Rollins. We'll move from my left to my right.
Well, for me, it's the only way I know how to even find out what the problems are that need to be solved. I recognize that there's a fair amount of malarkey that goes on in Salem, but there's a fair amount of malarkey that goes on everywhere. You can walk down the street and find a fair amount of malarkey. You just have to try to figure out what's going on and try to do the best thing that you can think of to help out. And you can't do that unless people are letting you know what the problems are.
While we have to serve both parties in the county, I'm personally not using this as a stepping stone. This is here I am. This is here I was raised. It's really important to me, like my forest plan, that we have this is a Curry County forest plan. This is our people's plan, not somebody that doesn't live here, that lives in DC. This is our plan. And I think it's really important too that for me, I want to leave a legacy that we helped the county, we grew the county, we made it better. We brought it back to what it used to be when I was a kid.
I've been working very hard for the last 5 months to shirk the notion that because of my background as an environmental engineer, I'm predominantly an environmentalist. That because I have volunteered my time and services to the Democratic Party of Oregon, that I strictly adhere only to the interests of the Democratic Party. There's a lot of frustration probably with Senate leadership that I haven't exactly been jumping through all the traditional hoops of a campaign. I'm pretty independent. I actively sought out the nomination of the Working Families of Oregon because what I recognized in that party was an alignment with the priorities that I have seen need to be addressed here in the district. My primary concern is to raise the standard of living for everyone. If you are comfortable with your prosperity, you have to understand that the security of your prosperity is directly related to the prosperity of those around you. If you feel that living in a district with 20 to 50% poverty is safe just because you're one of those that does not live in that poverty, then I'm going to assume that you're coming from a place of not really thinking through the situation. Everyone is at risk. We are all in this together. We have such profound and immediate issues that we have got to work together on. We don't have time for partisanship. We have got to cross the aisle. We have got to, I'm an engineer by training, and I love thinking about Venn diagrams. Think about those circles when we were back in geometry class in high school. The circles represent the interests. Sometimes those circles overlap, sometimes they don't. The Venn diagram is where all of our circles overlap, and there's a lot of work to be done there, and we have the skills to do it.
Additional comments from my candidates, please. My next ticket is ticket number 022. If 022, 22 is in the audience. Please identify. Oh, there we go. Good. I was about to move on to the next one. 022.
This is a question for the candidate for county commission. Would you please tell us something about your plan, your overarching plan for the county?
My overarching plan for the county, I would like to explore my forest plan to protect us from the fires, number one. I would like to explore partnerships to bring money into the county. Grants, I understand the county does not have a grant writer. How can we get a grant writer to bring pots of money into the county? So I would like to explore ways to bring funds in here to help support the county.
Thoughts from other candidates? The next ticket is 027. 027. Moving on. Next ticket is 024. 024 is next. Next ticket is 034. 034 is the next ticket.
I've been doing a lot of work with foundations and with nonprofits, and one of the biggest problems we have here on the coast is housing. And it isn't that the housing doesn't exist, but we're getting pretty close to 50% of all the housing right now is rental property. And the vast majority of that now is, and it's becoming greater every day, it's becoming rentals, summer rentals for higher price. We have got no housing for low-income people because of the constraints on the size of communities. We can't go out and just build new homes either. So how would you advocate solving this problem?
And sir, to whom do you direct your question?
All.
All three. Thank you, sir. The order I'd like to have the answers is going to be Thompson, Souza, Rollins.
At the tribe, we just completed an $11 million plan using low-income housing tax credits that will build 21 solar-ready homes. We have a 2-year window to build this in. These homes, after 15 years, we're hoping to transfer them into home ownership for people so they can experience what it's like to own a home. I realize there's land issues here. We were able to build this on our own trust land, but I think the process, I would really like to work to see if we can't do that up here in Curry County somewhere.
I've been fortunate to participate in focus groups for affordable housing in Coos County and now in Curry County. Both of those studies were funded by the United Way of Southwestern Oregon. Coos County was about 6 months ahead, and Curry County's findings will be issued in 2 weeks, I believe. In both of those studies, what we have found is, you are right, we have increasing pressure from the rental market. We also have aging housing stock that people aren't aging out of. They're not downsizing into smaller apartments or condos because guess what? They don't exist. So our working families don't have these houses to jump into. So we're really looking at that starter home and also that age-in-place home that we need. And we need housing at all levels. If we're talking about affordability, traditionally we're talking about 40% of someone's take-home pay. When you look at the median incomes of Curry County residents, which is similar to Coos County residents, that median income has kind of flatlined while our housing costs have continued to rise. When you couple that with a workforce, a lack of workforce in the construction trades, we aren't able to effectively participate in a competitive market for building construction. So there are many things that need to be done. As you've mentioned or alluded to, we certainly need to review our zoning laws. We need to look at that at the state level. We need to look at flexibilities at the local levels. We need to really consider looking at that Measure 102. Measure 102 would allow us to couple public bonds with private investment in affordable housing. I know that there's controversial measures taking place in Curry County along those lines. And by carefully crafting our agreements, we can protect affordable housing and open up some development opportunities.
Directly after World War II, this country had a national debt that was perilously close to the gross national product. We were recovering from a war. We had a lot of wounded soldiers to care for. And this country built houses for those returning soldiers, even under those economic conditions, and provided what was probably the wealthiest decade this country has had in the 1950s. I view the housing problem as a failure of will more than anything else. It's easily solvable. You have to ask yourself the question, why do we have a housing problem in the first place? It's because if you have a housing problem, you can keep jacking up the price of real estate beyond what it should be going for.
Any additional comments from my candidates? Next ticket is 020. Is 020 present? Next ticket is 025. Is 025 in the audience? Remember, folks, if you filled out a ticket, make sure you check those 3 digits there. If you'd like to volunteer to, I can put this ticket back in the hat, and I can pull another ticket if you'd like. I'd prefer it be a randomly selected, as you wish.
Just trying to share here. This is for everyone. What is your vision of a public education system in our county?
We'll go Shannon, Thompson, Rollins.
My vision for public education in the state of Oregon is a holistic education system that addresses the modern day needs of our children. The modern day needs of our children include really simple things like integrated mental health and a place to sleep at night. Integrated mental health in our school systems is desperately needed. Our teachers are facing students who are coming with emotional and traumatic issues to the school that are significant barriers to their success. Coupling that with integrated nutritional health in our school systems. When we talk about holistic education system, that means that we're not just looking at the reading and writing and arithmetic, but we're also looking at project-based learning that is definitely and securely rooted in the communities in which the children live. Bill and Melinda Gates and the Myers Foundation have undergone extensive research into effective public schools in impoverished parts of our nation. And all of those schools have relevance. The students are doing work that is relevant in real life. They have relationships with the communities in which they reside. When you can couple those things, then you can greatly increase the rigor that you demand of your students. Finally, I would like to integrate and invite to the table for active participation and funding our businesses and entities that stand to gain from a happy, healthy, capable workforce. To invite them to help us specifically design the educational pathways into living wage jobs so that our businesses can be more fruitful and that our population can enjoy the financial and mental well-being of self-sufficiency through gainful employment.
I agree with a lot of what Shannon just said. We've noticed that for us is the apprentice program. We need to bring back some of that so people can learn on-the-job trainings. As in the workforce that you mentioned, it's a need for our county as well. But I agree with Shannon on the health. We really need to address that with our children.
Well, it's hard to teach a hungry child. It's hard to teach a child who either doesn't have a roof over their heads or thinks they're not going to after a while. It's hard to teach a child who is growing up in an environment where his or her parents have lost their sense of self-worth because they're having a hard time supporting their family. All of these problems are related.
Any additional comment from my candidates? My next ticket is 041. 041 is the next ticket I've pulled from my hat. Next is ticket 015. 015 is a written question, which I will now read verbatim. The question is, and this is a question for all candidates, does any candidate think we can have an all-weather, year-round pool in Curry County? Does any candidate think we can have an all-weather, year-round pool in Curry County? I'd like to start with Mr. Rollins, and then we'll move left to right.
when I was when I was 2 years old, my parents and my older sisters and I stopped at the beach over there in Harbor, and you know, this area is known as kind of as the banana belt of Oregon, and my sisters, one of them grabbed one of my hands and one of them grabbed the other, and they dragged me out in the water, and I was shocked by how warm the water was, because we don't get that in Coos County so much at the beach. But, you know, that doesn't work in all cases, so sure, covered pool would be great.
Yes, we should be able to have a covered pool, year-round pool in Curry County.
I don't know that does it have to be covered? We do have some successful pools in Coos County is why I asked, but absolutely it's a wonderful ask. Public recreation and healthy, fun places for people of all ages to gather. We see that in the town of Coquille during the summertime, of course. It's wonderful, the families and teenagers, and it's safe. Mingus Park is the same. I just mentioned that because Mingus Park it's heated. It is all weather all year, and it's not covered. So I said, yeah, come up with the ask, and I would think that there are a lot of complementary philanthropic institutions that might lean in on that.
Additional comments? Ticket 012 from the audience, ticket number 012. Well, I see on the clipboard quite a few coupons there.
I got 4 of them, but it's like I never win.
Yes. Oh, by the way, audience, yes, definitely. If you would like to have multiple tickets because you have multiple questions, please do take a ticket from the back. I just had my supporter bring me an extra ticket here. Thank you. Let's allow our questioner to ask their question now.
Okay, this is for all the candidates. What do you see as your biggest challenges of the upcoming session, in the case of the commission and upcoming length of term of office?
Okay, I'd like to start with Ms. Thompson, then Ms. Souza, then Mr. Rollins.
Biggest challenge is getting elected, and then after that, my biggest challenge would be, I think there's going to be a multitude of challenges. I don't know that I could identify the biggest one. I think there's going to be a lot of challenges that we'd have to look at.
Personally, this would be yet another baptism by fire for me. I've never sat in an elected office, so I would be learning the ropes very quickly and have been dutifully establishing relationships with other elected legislators to date so that I could hit the ground running. Legislatively speaking, in 2019, we have Herculean tasks before us, 2 of them. Either one of them would take the entire long session. One is student success, to download the update on our educational systems and how we fund them. So we're talking about not only education, but we're talking about businesses and taxes and economics, and to take on the contemplated carbon cap and invest. Those are 2 huge tasks. And that is going to be an all hands on deck. We really need to have a team there, and we really need to have a team members there that are willing to collaborate and innovate.
Well, there's a bill this fall. I don't know if it's going to affect the next session of the legislature at all, but there's a measure in the fall election to address the housing problem. So I don't know if that's going to be a problem or not, but it's something that really seriously needs to be addressed. If for no other reason than our claim to calling ourselves decent human beings.
I would like to say, too, I'd like to compliment my audience on continuing to be outstandingly quiet while our candidates are answering. Really, that is fantastic. I'd also like to thank my audience, too, for all of our questions so far being phrased in a civil manner. That really is outstanding. I'd like to continue that, too. Really, no, thank you. Our next ticket is ticket number 029. Is 029 in the audience? Looks like we may have 029. People are maybe checking their ticket numbers. I want to make sure I don't want to skip past 029. Perhaps not. Okay, moving on to the next ticket. Next ticket is 039. 039 is the next ticket. As you wish. Now, skip and then come back again later, or discard? Understood. Next ticket is ticket number 016. Is 016 in the audience? Excellent.
My name is Bill Buchanan. I've been here 29 years. I've been a logger, run logging company, had employees. Primarily, I've been a developer and builder, and have seen the the economic pain that this region has gone through for a long time. And I guess since I get 3 questions now, actually I'll start with a follow-up to one that was already asked that's sort of off my prime topics. But I was interested in Ms. Souza's short response on the matter of education. In my development work, I have found perhaps the leading problem we have here is the perception that we have poor schools. That many people don't see this, but for those young families that could energize the economy, people well-educated, with money, with fresh ideas, who would build businesses, they say Curry County is so beautiful, but we can't take our kids there. And I was just reading James Fallow's recent book that he wrote exploring small towns that were coming back. And the key, he said, was a community that loved their schools, and they had destination schools. They were special in some way.
And sir, what is your question for Ms. Souza?
Ms. Souza, and further, I've been interested in starting a school for trades and so forth in traditional trades. Anyway, could you expand further? What would you do to make education here special? And is this just, yes, I like education, or can you fund it? Can you see a path to bring it about?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Souza, your question?
To finalize on the answer, what would I do to make it special? So I've already talked about the community connectivity, in addition to the ample work that our students really can be doing for our communities to raise their sense of pride and to help to attract those young families to the communities that we so desperately need. We desperately need young working families in order for our economy to survive. How would we pay for it? I would look for 3 different ways. This is, again, a multifaceted problem without a simple answer. The first way is to look at what I call stone soup economics. What are the components of a successful school system to set our kids up and our citizens up for meaningful engagement and participation? Who's already doing that work, and can we weave them into the fabric of our society? We have survival skills, hunter safety, civics, citizen science. There are so many really important and effective facets of public education that we have nonprofit organizations and groups already doing, and if we can pull them into the mix to collaborate with our school system, then that's what I'm calling that kind of a stone soup. The other is stitch in time. Where are we spending our money and when are we spending our money? If we can direct our investments upstream, for example, Head Start, $1 spent in Head Start is $27 saved down the line. So where can we afford those returns on investment to really just put it down into nuts and bolts business terms? And finally, engaging and redefining the relationship between those that benefit from our educated students and those who are designing and funding our educational systems. We need to look at corporations investing in the very societies that they benefit from.
Other candidates, thoughts on education? My next ticket is ticket number 014. Ticket number 014 is next. Excellent. We have a questioner for ticket 014.
Good afternoon. It seems both at the local level and our national level that there are a lot of elected officials who are using their offices for either their own self-aggrandizement or enrichment. I would like to address this to each candidate and like to ascertain what your perception is of your role relating to your constituents and how you would fulfill your role or accountability to your constituents. Thank you.
I'd like to begin with Ms. Thompson, then Mr. Rollins, then Ms. Souza.
I would begin to listen to my constituents, see what they want, what we can do. And as a community gathering, I put a lot of value in the community gathering to see what as a community we want, and rather than just listening to one person and one idea, let's get the whole community. We have a whole county here. What do they want? And listen to them and make that a strategic plan, maybe, and then have a vision off of that plan and follow the vision. That's what I would do. And
if I wind up at the state legislature, about the most important thing to do is to just do what helps people out and try to avoid mucking things up too much.
I have had the good fortune of being born to wonderful people in a great place, and I was afforded every opportunity as a child and would very much like to extend that definition to as many children and Oregonians as possible. I never actually sought public office. I have, over my last 20 years, been asked to seek public office by other elected leaders, by former employees, by former workmates, or those who have attended various forums and presentations that I've given on the topics of education, energy, public water supply, and ecological systems. I have agreed to do this because myself, my siblings, my children, none of us have been called into active duty. There's no shrapnel involved. I certainly didn't raise my hand and offer to do that. And I think that it's the least that I can do, given the opportunities and benefits that I garnered just by being born, to whom and where I was born, to offer up my services for a greater common good. To date, what I have done is co-invented with some friends Drinking Civilly, which is a gathering of unlike minds to discuss political hot topics and listen carefully to the constituents around the district and understand and make sure that I heard them correctly in their facts, their observations, and their visions for what they would like to see in terms of management around those political hot topics. And those are kind of the things that I would propose to continue doing as a senator.
Additional comments from my candidates? Next ticket is ticket number 018. 018 is my next ticket. Would you like to go back in the hat for later or discard? Okay. Next ticket is ticket number 046. 046 is next. Remember, please do check your tickets. Check those last 3 digits if 046 is yours. Excellent.
Hello. Can you hear me okay? Great. There was a discussion before about the perception that our students maybe aren't good learners. So let's talk about that for a second in terms of your vision for education. So there is an emerging science called music neuroscience, and there have been a lot of studies done that show that beyond just the simple Mozart effect, if you will, of having your wee one at just after birth listening to Mozart and how that improves their whatever abilities, their sense of their surroundings, whatever. This is studies that show that children who actually study a musical instrument become better learners. And we could move that onto children who study dance and how that improves their self-confidence, their posture, their attitude. And I'm just wondering if I could get your view on, in the scheme of all the things that we have in front of us, how important is it to you that we have an arts and culture effort? And what would your view of that be? What would your vision of that be? And how would you implement it? Thank you.
Rollins, Thompson, Souza.
The arts, I think, are incredibly important. I'm a little at sea about what you mean by how to implement it. You give children a chance to express themselves. You give them a few details and you let them run with it. I think that finding that little spark that dwells within each child that can be nurtured a little bit and gets that child to explore their environment, to reflect on it, to connect to it is a transformational experience for any child. And I think that possibly one of the problems with this country today is that a lot of kids are not finding that connection. We need good teachers. We need them in all fields.
I think that the arts, music, and language is all important to kids. I have 3 grandchildren, and Ed talks about the spark in kids. I do believe it's important. How we would put it into schools, I would have to look to see if we could do that, but certainly after-school programs, it would be available to all kids and not just kids that have means to go there, but all kids who possibly don't have the means to receive this and get help from it.
The first charter school that I co-founded was based on Steinerian principles, which are basically holistic education through formalized instruction of the arts, performing arts and fine arts, and recognizing the creativity, the mental flexibility, and the performance-based measures that kids bring out in themselves that build self-confidence and the ability to connect and communicate with others. As you noted, there's ample science to support investments, meaningful investments in the arts. The second time, we were hoping to open an arts integrated project-based learning school in the Coos Bay district. I got to go back to my hometown of Tacoma, where there is a public school, Tacoma's High School of the Arts, in a very, very impoverished area of downtown inner city Tacoma, where their truancy rates have dropped to 0, where their graduation rates are 100%, and the kids are actively engaged because they are learning through the arts. When that charter was not approved, we rolled that 501c3 that we had already opened up for Orco Arts into an after-school program called the Guild, where we were able to garner professional artists as volunteers and partner with the Boys and Girls Club for a space and equipment so that we have professional artists in the area, and any student, any high school or junior high school student could go and learn how to perform, how to gig, kind of a school of rock, fine arts, drawing, and instruction. So I am wholehearted proponent, understand its value, and will look under any rock to figure out how we can fund that for our children.
My next ticket is ticket number 045. 045 is my next ticket.
Bill Buchanan again. This starts as a question for Jerry Lynn, although I'd like answers to both the, like to hear from both the state candidates. I was very interested in your comments about plans for federal lands. I at least would not invest in a planting of a dense tree plantation with things burning up at the rate they are. It's stupid for this county to base its future on planting things that are going to burn up and bother us with smoke and maybe risk our houses at the same time. But that there's a tremendous amount of money generated by the forest, and aesthetic and whatever meditative value so forth. Oh, I should stop talking so much.
It's all right, sir.
So could you go on a bit further and explain, are we actually is your vision going back to the native system where we would have isolated pockets of trees with meadows or fields between them that people could horse ride on or go to their favorite fishing hole or graze stuff, and turn it into the real multiple use thing that also would be resilient to the future? Is that what you were talking about? And if so, that is going to need some regulatory changes if we were to bring it into private lands at the state level.
Sir, why don't I hand the microphone to Ms. Thompson? She can
Okay.
try to elucidate on her answer there.
Yes, that is exactly what I was talking about, was the traditional ways. One of the comments, I was at an event, and they thought about having a buffer outside of the Kalmiopsis Wilderness area, because that seems to be where our fires start. So let's get a buffer between us and them. But it is the traditional ways. I understand the City of Sisters over in Eastern Oregon has a fire buffer around them. Like I mentioned, the Karuk tribe have been acknowledged for their excellence in the forest management, the traditional way. So where you have the prairies, you have the trees. You have the prairies and the trees, and you break it up so it's not all trees and get burnt. You mentioned the regulatory thing. I would like to explore doing this with Merv as our supervisor, because from the Rogue River almost to the California border, our national forest has been burnt now. It's already been burnt.
To finish that part of the question, I was thinking about bringing it into private.
Sir, if you'd like to add some additional stuff, I actually don't mind if you take the microphone and add a little bit more. Can you give about 30 seconds or so to add?
Sure. In the 1970s, the state adopted this new land use system, took 98% of the buildable land of Curry County and zoned it essentially industrial fire production only, 96%. At the same time, they made 100% of the land of the Portland metro area buildable. It was an incredible transfer of wealth. Now all these places must be essentially tree farms, high-density, non-natural tree farms. And that will only change with change in state regulations, allowing people to have small farms for local produce and things like that in these places that are now zoned for 160-acre minimums, for industrial production. Do the candidates favor that kind of regulatory change that would make a more complex human natural ecosystem in the private lands rather than have them be flammable and industrial?
I would like to work with Merv and get a map of all of our forest lands and we have some qualified foresters and other people in Curry County. How can we overlay that with a map of what this would look like? What would it look like coming out into the private land? How do we make a buffer with the private land? Do we make a buffer? Where do we make the buffer? I think we all need to sit down at the table and look at this as our county, our forest plan. We're unique here. We're different than the whole Pacific Northwest Forest Plan with the trees that we have. And I think this is something I would really like to do.
And Mr. Rollins, would you like to comment next? It's optional, sir, if you'd like.
Well, in 1936, most of Bandon burned to the ground. There were a lot of fires around the entire country, especially the western U.S. that summer. There were a lot of fires in Coos County. By most accounts, it started out as a bit of a gorse fire or close to. If you have brushland, that is not a guarantee that you're not going to have a fire. If you don't have tall trees, the ground dries out faster. But in dry years, like we've been having a lot of lately, it doesn't help much. I don't know how to stop fires. I ain't too sure anybody does anymore.
I believe your question was about private forestry management and the state's regulations. The short answer is yes, I would be a strong proponent of revisiting and opening up and updating those plans. They are outdated in terms of what we now understand about soil science and how we must manage our soils for those to remain productive. They're outdated with respect to the economics of exporting this resource without any value-added benefits, not making it into furniture, not turning it into cross-laminated timber, so many things that we could be doing to employ more people. They're outdated in terms of what we now understand with our landslide risks. They are outdated in terms of what we understand about the potential for hand thinning and patch cuts. We can employ more people. It doesn't necessarily benefit the timber operators who would like to spend less to harvest more. But if we really are talking about the timber industry supporting society and employing more people, then these are measures that certainly benefit them. And most importantly, it's outdated, not most importantly, but a huge contributor. It's outdated in terms of our connectivity to clean water. Clean water is what we drink. It is what fuels all of our industry and our commerce. We recreate in it, and we are a salmon nation. The salmon is our indicator species of the health of our ecosystems, and we are not serving them well.
The next ticket is number 028. Number 028, next ticket. Next is 044. Is 044 present? Looking for 044. And thank you, everyone, for being patient as we participate in this event. Please go ahead, sir, with your question.
Sure, I'll try not to ramble on so much. Okay, this one's for Shannon, too. Yeah, this area has really hurt economically. I mean, suicides, kids that should have had futures of, in, messed up problems. A lot of the reason it's been done to it by, I think, misguided, well-intentioned state regulations by people from Portland and so forth who just don't understand the economy. People have responded by assuming the two parties are a rural party and a urban party, and only Republicans represent rural Oregonians.
And your question, sir?
If you are, the senator, are you really going to look at our economy, making the people here prosper, or will you be following the marching orders from Thousand Friends of Oregon or various other, Portland powers that have imposed their will on the people here for 30 or 40 years?
We don't need more voices for Metro Oregon and Salem. They've got that covered. Thank you very much. And I am very eager to participate representing the specific needs of rural Oregon. In some ways, we come upon that divide I sit on 2 boards of directors that are statewide. One of them is the Professional Engineers of Oregon, and the other is the Oregon's Solar Energy Industry Association. And in both of those facets, coupled with my participation for the State Democratic Party of Oregon platform conventions twice, that divide really makes itself self-evident. And in both of those situations, we have much more representation traditionally serving the metro means. Those are the types of experiences that I have had and really enjoyed providing an effective voice for rural Oregonians who have a very different reality that we're grappling with, and glossing over our issues because they aren't pertinent to Metro doesn't change the fact that they are still our issues. So no, I look forward to living out all of my days here happily, and that means that I need to be able to look at everyone in the face and honestly say that I understood what the implications of my votes were and am ready to come back and answer questions about those.
Would either of my other candidates like to speak on the matter of, if I may rephrase, being beholden to a larger organization of any kind? If not, I'll move on to the next question. Mr. Rollins.
Okay, well, I recognize that more Republicans get elected in what are considered rural areas, and more Democrats tend to get elected in what are considered urban areas. As far as the great cultural divide is concerned, if you drive up to Portland and head 20 miles east, you're going to see logging trucks. It's not an unknown fact of life to people from Portland. We have mostly the same cable channels they've got. I don't, politics is kind of it's a funny thing. Sometimes people play on minor differences and blow them out of proportion. Well, they don't understand our needs here in rural Oregon. Sometimes what you're really looking at is people exploiting things in rural Oregon. They understand what's going on pretty well sometimes.
My next ticket is ticket number 042. Is 042 present with a question? Excellent.
Hi, my question is for Ms. Thompson. I wanted to ask you, do you feel that we have a problem with drugs here in Curry County? And if so, how would you feel about getting a program into our local schools to educate our youth? And also, if how you would feel about getting some kind of rehabilitation here in our county?
Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Yes, we do have a drug problem in Curry County. I think it's nationwide. I attended the homeless event at the library, and what came out of that is Father Bernie was talking about the homelessness, and I just coordinated our social service worker from the tribe to meet with Father Bernie to help we can get a counselor there, a drug and alcohol counselor there at the church. And I do believe it needs to be taught in schools. We need to have all kinds of issues in school relating to the drug and alcohol problem. I would love to see a rehab center in Curry County or some adjacent county that our local people can go to get help that they need. The people that want to get help. But there is a drug issue. The tribe has it. I've seen it all over. And we're all trying to address it the best way we can. Some people believe in the housing first model, where you get into the house and then you get helped to come off of the drugs. And you have all kinds of social services help there to help you do that. So there's different areas that you could do this, but yes, it's needed in this county. Anybody else?
About the candidates, would they like to say anything about narcotics or drug issue? When I pass to Susan and Mr. Barnes.
Yes, we have, in addition to the suicide rates and our substance dependency, and most recently we've been talking about opioids, but if it's not that, then it's meth or alcoholism. And when you boil everything down, it comes down to a lack of hope and some serious mental health issues. We've got integrated mental health issues throughout our communities. So in my conversations with those that are providing services, both from a punitive matter or for integrated health services, what we really need to do is expand our funding and our accessibility to treatment, meaningful, effective treatment. We need transportation for people to get from where they are to where the treatment is, and also for them to get to their jobs or any other avenues that they have for reintegrating into society in a productive way. They need ways to communicate. They need houses over their heads. So these are really getting back down to these: do we have food, water, and shelter? If I know that and I'm secure, then I can start thinking about how to improve my situation and how to participate in my own well-being. If I don't have that, and I don't have help, and I don't have hope, then why not just take a break from it all by shooting up or lighting up or whatever is offered to me if I really don't have any other opportunities there? The tribes have been experimenting also successfully with wellness courts. Instead of focusing on punitive measures for those that are involved in drug-related offenses, looking for those pathways to help them in their own wellness by integrating them into the community and establishing those healthy habits and decisions that can direct them into a different pathway.
I don't know about the ages currently, but when I was a kid, kids hit about the age of 12 or 13 or maybe 14, and they think they know what they're doing, and they think they know what they're getting into, and they don't. And that is a fact of life that gets taken advantage of a lot. And you need to, it's really hard. It's really a hard thing to deal with because you get a kind of a subculture sometimes, and the more you try to dissuade kids, the more they start thinking just an old wet towel or something. It's very, very important. Give them something else to do.
My next ticket is ticket number 21, which is a written submission, which I will endeavor to read verbatim. This ticket is a question for the entire panel. Here's the question. Question for the whole panel. The state restricts retail marijuana businesses from being within 1,000 feet of schools. Would you be willing to restrict them from being 1,000 feet from residences as well, because children are living there too? If my candidates would like me to reread the question, I can. But the order I'd like the answer to come in is from Mr. Rollins, and then to Ms. Thompson, then Ms. Souza.
You'd have to have a very large town with a very low population density, but although I do think that legalized marijuana was not a mistake, I do think it needs to be controlled. And if that's what it takes to control it, I would not be against it.
I think the marijuana laws in the western states came so fast and furious that nobody really had time to plan for them of what that would look like. And I kind of think that we really maybe need to go back and look at the liquor stores and the guidelines that they have, and maybe we should follow some of those examples within the state of Oregon. And we may have to revisit this marijuana issue and the laws that are surrounded in the future.
Given that we're faced with the housing crisis that we are, and in many of our communities, we do have vacancies in our urban areas that could be redeveloped as apartment dwellings and condominiums. I'm going to say no, I don't think that I would support that. What I would support is a concerted effort to publicly educate and change the perception about children with marijuana. We did a really nice job in our efforts publicly to persuade the citizens of Oregon that it's not a good idea for people to be smoking cigarettes near open doors and near our children. And that was just based on education. We know that children should not, that the human brain shouldn't be using, especially the high grades of marijuana that are out there now, until after they're 25 years old, when those brains are developed. We should really, really be heavily investing in that as just a social norm, instead of the culture of it's okay to jump out from high school and go smoke your spliff during your breaks and step back into the school. It's a heavy lift, but it's certainly one that we can take on.
My next question is 043. 043 is the next ticket. Is 043 in the audience? Next ticket is 013. 013 is next. Is 13 in the audience? I'm afraid not. Next ticket is 047. 047 is next. I see. And by the way, folks, some may, if they have their ticket called, may decide not to. Maybe their question was answered. So that's, I think, why some of these tickets, someone may not come up. Next ticket is 019. 019 is called.
I wonder if we could just ask.
I have a question for the audience. Yes, sir? Say again?
Just wondered if you want to pose to the audience if they have any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, it just so happens that my hat happens to be empty. That means that the ticketed questions have been submitted. Now, I would I will continue to ask that we maintain our questions at 1 minute in length. My candidates, 2-minute responses in length. However, I think I'd like to now accept a scenario where if someone would like to come up to the mic and maybe other folks would like to politely line up behind them, I'm interested in adopting that kind of scenario for the remainder of our time. I'd like to remind everyone that we have this room for 5 p.m. I also want to make sure that my candidates are also okay with continuing to answer your questions. Do any of my candidates have any problems with that setup? We have this room until 5 p.m., that's correct. Now again, that does not necessarily mean that those of you in the audience have to remain in those seats necessarily.
Why don't you just open it up so everybody can talk to the candidates individually and we wrap this up because it's dragged on long enough.
Sure, I'd like to ask if anyone else would like to use the opportunity to call on the microphone, and then I can end the structured portion of the forum. I do have one person who'd like to take this opportunity. Sir, please, there's the microphone. Please take 1 minute to ask your question of our candidates.
So I'm the county commissioner, or the county administrator here, Clark Schroeder. Got a question when I'm analyzing the housing shortage that we have for affordable housing. One of the things I think that is an impediment is the lack of land, obviously. Would you support a bill which would allow us to take forest and grazing land and rezone it to residential development at the state level for counties that have over 50% land owned by the government?
Okay. We'll do Rollins, Thompson, Souza.
How much land do you need?
Whatever developers are willing to put up.
Developers or the people who need to live in the houses that you want built?
One of the impediments to developing affordable housing is the lack of available land to build on. One of the solutions would be to allow forest and grazing land to be rezoned to be residential.
Okay. People need a place to live. I asked the question, I know it sounded a little facetious, but I'm just curious about how much land, how many people and how much land we're talking about, or do we leave this up to the developers exclusively? Are we talking about development for low-income housing exclusively? Or are we just talking about opening the land up to any developers who want to develop any kind of housing?
That'd be up to the legislators in Salem to ascertain.
I'm sorry.
That would be up to legislators to ascertain. I'm just asking, would you be willing to support investigating opening up forest and grazing land for residential development?
Yes.
That's a tough question, Clark. I think we need to look at that because of our housing shortage. I really don't want to give up our forest and grazing lands. I've seen what it's done to the bigger cities like in Medford over there, where they took the agricultural land and now they're big housing complexes. It's kind of a catch-22. Either we don't build houses, we don't have people, or we have farmland and no people. So it's a tough question. I would be willing to look at it.
Yes, I like that you put support investigating in there. That makes that a really easy yes, absolutely. I'd be very interested. And in general, I'm very interested also in increasing my knowledge of the interplay between the roles that the state and the counties and local jurisdictions have in making their own decisions, whether that's because of ties to funding streams or if there are actually regulatory provisions that are barriers to that. Because I know that what we are experiencing is that each of our counties and our communities has its own nuance of needs and opportunities and threats and weaknesses, just like businesses do. So to the extent that we can get locally elected officials in positions to make decisions that directly affect their local constituency, whether it's at the county or the city level, I'm very interested in considering changes.
An additional comment from Mr. Rollins. 1 minute, sir.
Question, really. Are you sure that there isn't enough land within incorporated boundaries or outside residential areas, either one, to accommodate housing shortages?
Well, without necessarily bringing it to open debate, I would like the opportunity to open this up and kind of end the structured portion. I'm sensing from my audience that's a preference. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to give my three candidates that closing statement opportunity and then end the structured portion of the forum. Unless anyone else really wants to use this opportunity to make that microphone question, I'd like to do that now. Our order for the closing statements is going to go Souza, Thompson, and Rollins. So this is the closing statement portion. Closing statements are intended to be about 1 minute in length. Ms. Souza, your closing statement, please.
I'll keep this very short. I absolutely love this district. I know how it works. I see what needs to be done, and I can help.
I'd like to thank the opportunity to come before you and speak to you on my plans for the county. Thank you. Chushinila, that's our native language. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be here. And I appreciate the questions. I had a candidate statement. It's not going to get into the voters pamphlet. I left some of them on the back table, but I was wondering if, do you suppose it would be worthwhile to read that as a closing statement?
Closing statements are going to be a little shorter than that, I'd say. But if you'd like to, at the end of all this, I'll let my candidates have the opportunity to move to different places in the room. If someone would like to talk to their candidate, I'll take that microphone back this morning. Very briefly, I wanted to thank my audience for coming here today to this 2018 Fall Candidate Forum event. I really do appreciate you coming. I thank you also for your patience as we made through this event here today. It was fantastic. I want to offer my candidates thanks for coming up and participating in this event with you all. If my candidates would like to come down off the stage and move to different areas and talk to you, they may feel free to do so. This ends the structured portion of today's event and the broadcast as well. Thank you all very much, and I appreciate your time.